Alright guys, we're back. What I'm going to do on this video right here is I'm probably going to break this one up into, the rest of it up into like two parts. I want to do one of just the timing of this engine. I didn't get a real good, I guess I didn't do a really good how-to or DIY on the actual timing of this last time. So I want to go into that, and so everybody understands that. I've got a full day here, so I'm pretty sure I can finish up the engine today. But I want to show you how to time it. I'll make that a video, and then I'll come back and I'll show you just wrapping everything back up, which is basically the opposite of what I've already shown you probably twice now. So, but anyway, I've got everything laid out here. I've got some pictures and stuff, and some you know, a little write-up how to do it and all that stuff. I'll show you everything. I'll explain to you what I can, and we'll go from there. So, take a look here what we got. Let's see. First thing I got here is the diagram of all the mating marks, the chains, the guides, water pump, everything, gears. Description of what each thing is. So, just that's a reference there that we can use if we need. I've also got another one here showing you the different marks. And it goes down and kind of tells you what to do here. I've laid it out, and I'm going to do this in two parts, and I'll put it together. But we're going to do the secondary chime chains, which is, you know, and let me make a clarification here as well. I noticed, thanks to, was it 2012 Nugget? He's done this several times. I think it's one of the cars that he works on regularly. Anyway, on his video that I watched, he's got a two-part video on the time chain tensioner, which is the main tensioner here that he's replacing due to this has gotten weak, and it's slapping, and that's what you're hearing in there. What we had was a different issue. Now, I replaced this tensioner, the main tensioner, but the issue that we had was with the actual, bear with me here, I'm hooked up with power. What we had was the shoes on the secondary tensioners. Plastic shoes were wearing out, cutting down, and that's what we were hearing. So there's apparently a couple different issues that can go wrong here. Now, from everything I've read, and you know the way I would do things is I would definitely replace the primary tensioner, because that seems to be an issue as well, which we did. I always replace all guide rails because they're plastic, and that's just something that tends to wear out on these. So I'd replace all of these. This one's actually been replaced. It's a different color than the others, but when we got in there on this one, the top of this was broke off. Well, it was broke off. I found it in the oil pan. I would replace all three of the chains. The old ones don't really have the colored marks on there anymore anyway, but I would replace those. Definitely replace the water pump, or at least the seals at minimum. I would do a water pump them in there. Let's see, and then of course those shoes on the secondary one tensioners. So that's the stuff I would replace. But bear in mind, like I said, there's a couple different issues that can go wrong here. Tensioner can go wrong, plastic guide rails can break, the plastic shoes on these tensioners were the ones that were worn down on ours. So I would replace all that stuff. And okay, so getting back to the timing here, like I said, I'm gonna show you the timing of the secondary chains, and then I'm gonna show you the timing of the primary chain, because this is pretty important. If you get this wrong, I mean, you're going right back in here. So hence the reason we're in here, which if anybody needs clarification on that, what happened was I didn't have all the parts to finish timing this engine, and then I had to move. So I had timed the secondary, and then I moved and came back to time the primary. In that process, I thought I had everything tightened up and everything, and I was in the middle of timing, and I did not. These bolts right here, they go through here. We're not torqued. The exhaust sides were torqued. The intake side was not torqued, so it backed out. This this gear slid back off, and you can see the dial hole right there. See how it's a little bit reamed out? Where it slid out, that pin slid out, this thing leaned back, and basically this kept spinning along with the exhaust side, and the intake cams did not spin, and that's how we got the bent valve. That's why I'm back in here. It's just to clarify that. That's, you know, it was a dumb mistake. I should not have been in there timing an engine and then stop halfway, move houses, and continue. That's not the way to do things. Don't start timing this engine until you have all the pieces. I was trying to get a step ahead, and it didn't work out because I didn't get all the parts that I thought I was going to have. So that's out of the way. So what I'm going to do, because that's a little reamed out also, I've got the little dowels that go in there, and I'm going to use some Loctite sleeve retainer, which it's made for if something's a little bit oversized or worn. You can put it in there. It cures in about 10 minutes, I believe, and that'll take up the gap and hold it into place. That's how I'm going to fix that little bit of play issue. Let's see. Okay, as far as timing goes, I'm going to show you the marks on each of the cams. I'm going to show you on the chain, and there's 2 sets of marks on both the gears. Okay, the chain, only thing you got to worry about is you've got 2 gold or copper links and 1 gold or copper link. I'm going to go with copper here, okay? The 1 is for the main intake gear. The 2 is for the exhaust gear, okay? Simple enough. You got 2 sets of marks here. You've got, okay, those are oval, and those are circles. Let's see. The ovals are for, we'll read this right off the directions here actually. Right bank, use circle type. Don't worry about the numbers. Left bank, use the oval type, and that'll put you in time. And I'll show you how to make sure that's right also when you get ready to put it on. So, basically, you're looking like this, okay? Now, if you'll look at this is our gear, right? Now, if I'm looking at it this way, a bank here, and the cam or crank down here, we're gonna have to turn this around and mirror it, okay? So this is actually, we're looking at it to the right. You always go by the engine's right or left, not by your right or left. So if you want to be right, if you want to be correct on which bank you're on, get behind the engine and look towards the front of the engine. So this looks like our right. This is actually going to be the left bank. This is going to be the right bank. Bank 1, bank 2, and then the crank. So the way this sits is you can see the head on that where it's worn in right, or not the head, the ring right here where it's worn. Okay, and then you can see where this just kind of is kind of worn a little differently. This is what's going to go flat. Okay, that ring you see is from the bolt that keeps it on, so you know which way that goes. This faces out. Okay, now with the marks, either mark you have, let's see here. Okay, on here you can see that we have the oval and the circle. Now if you'll turn it from there, you'll see a little mark right down in there, and then you'll see a little mark down in there. So either one you're using, you can still use that, see the copper link, and look down to see if you're right, because this right here is going to be against the surface of the cam and the head. You're not going to see this anymore. So we're going to use this to get it lined up, but that's all we're going to do with that, okay? So once again, we're going to do, let's do the left bank first, which is our right. We're going to do the left bank first. Left bank, oval. Alright, so we got oval, right? Circle, oval. We'll put this on here. There you go. One link, one mark. And we're on this side, so it's oval. Now keep in mind, this is the side of the engine. Alright? So this has to be this way. Okay? So now, if you turn it over, you don't see any timing marks. So what you have to do is figure out you're going to use the oval side, and now's where kind of keep that tight, turn it over. This is easier when you have when you have both hands, but thread that open there. Alrighty, and we're using oval. So now we've matched up the 2 oval marks with the 2 copper links. Now, if you wanted to see, well, okay, I'll get that back in a minute. If you want to see if you were right, you would look down here, right? You see that mark there? along with the copper link, so you know you're still right over here. Alright, like I said, this is easier with two hands, so I'm going to give you, a general idea, and then I'll do it and I'll come back and show you. Alright, so that's how we're looking. Now, another way you know you're right is if you remember when we were timing the cams, actually, let me see if I got a picture of that. I'd rather show it to you again if I can. I know I do. I kept all those. Once again, there's top dead center for the crank. Piston number 1. Here we go. The large dowels on the exhaust side point perpendicular to that head, right? So it's at an angle, but it's perpendicular. And then the small diameter holes, which is where your little dowels go, they point perpendicular as well. Alright, so with that in mind, what we're doing here is if this is on the engine and this is the way it would be, you know your large dowel is facing up. So you know you're right if you're looking at the engine, the right bank, or the left, the engine's left bank now, okay, you're right. Okay? That's facing up, so that's correct. You also know you're correct. Like I said, that may pop out again, but well, here, let's just turn it over. Now you can see, you also know you're correct because the small dowel is going to be up as well. So you know you got that one timed right. If that doesn't match up when you go to put it on, stop and recheck it, okay? So like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little retaining compound, sleeve retainer in there. I'm going to put that down there, I'm going to put a little bit on the other side, I'm going to push it on, and I'm going to screw down the bolt. Here we go. And I'm going to screw the bolt in, ensuring that stays in there. Okay? So that's one side. The other side we're going to do exactly the same, except for we're going to use the circles this time. And you can see somebody painted these from where they've been in here before. Or maybe it's like that at factory, I'm honestly not sure on this engine. But then you're going to do the same thing. Now this, keep one thing in mind. This right here, no, this is right. Okay, so you got the circles there, 2 copper links. And if I pick this up, do not go by this out here on this large one. This is only for timing the primary. Alright, so that came off, but that's fine. So we come down and we look in there, and we got that little divot there, that little hole, and a copper link. We come back on the back side, we're using the circle, so we're right on there. Alright, now that's how you do it. You put those on and tighten those down to torque spec. I will get the torque spec for you in a second and let you know what that is, because we're going to torque those for sure this time, because that's the whole reason we had to go back in here. So another thing I want to show you while I'm right here, well, like I said, I'm going to come back and show you the primary chain and doing all that. You'll have to put your water pump in there. You've got the O-rings on there. We'll put that in there. When you're compressing this in, I had a little bit of trouble trying to do this with my fingers, and you definitely need a couple hands to do it. There's when you got a new one, it's no big deal. It's already done for you. But there's a little slot around this that allows you to squeeze this so it opens up farther than these little ribs. These ribs are like a little one-way catch. It goes and it stops. It won't come back. Excuse me. So what I'm doing is I got enough ice, and this is plastic here, so I've got a rag wrapped up quite a bit there, so there's no pressure on this side really. Start tightening down, and you see the oil come out right there in that hole. That's the problem, is all the oil pressure is trying to come, is trying to come out now. So it's easier to do if you got, like, you can even use a pair of large pliers or something like that maybe. Just be careful, like I said, put something on the back side so you don't mess it up. So I'm going to squeeze a little bit till there's a little bit of resistance, and I'm going to back it off just a little bit. There you go, and I'm going to slide this little piece up. You hear that? Basically what was happening there is I was releasing it, and you could hear that's kind of how it works. So I'm going to keep sliding that up and tightening it. Sliding it up and tightening it. This is easier because I could hold this, if I had 2 hands I could do it a lot easier. But so anyway, I'm going to keep going with that, and then just anything, a little paper clip, a little piece of mechanics wire, anything, and I'm going to go through here, through this hole on the side once I get past here, and that'll hold it back in place. And that's how you need to do that. There's some other methods. If you'll Google this stuff, or not Google it, if you'll search on YouTube for this, there's another guy out there that does these. He releases one bolt, just breaks it loose, doesn't take it out, then takes the other one out, and then it pivots, and then he uses a screwdriver. I think it's actually on a 4th gen, but should work about the same. And then you use a screwdriver to push it back while it's still in there, if you got the timing cover and everything on. So he was actually showing how to just replace a water pump through the access panels. through these two guys. Oh, you guys can't really see that, can you? Anyway, you can take through these access panels and you can get the water pump out and release the tension and everything without ever having to do that. So, you know, we were going there for different issues. So, anyway, just keep compressing that in, and give me a second. Let me get that on. I'll show it to you, and then we'll come back. I'll show you how to time the primaries as well. Okay, so I've got the secondary time chains on. Had to kind of finesse them on a little bit. Basically, you're lining up, once again, you're lining up that point right there with the large dowel, and the other one you just kind of have to rock it back and forth till it slides in. And like I said, I used, because of the situation I ran into, I used the sleeve retainer, and with that bolted down, that should harden up and keep everything right in place, which is gonna, you know, thank goodness for stuff like this, so that when you make a little bit of a mistake or something, there's things out there to fix your problems. So anyway, so I put those on, got those all lined up and everything, and there's a couple ways you can tell if they're both on and if they're, you know, they're all the way in and everything. I used a little inspection mirror to make sure that was lined up. You can see right here where the chain rides right on the shoe. You can see where it's just right there on the edge, just inside that little lip right there. You know, as long as that's happening, and the other one's on the bottom, so I use an inspection mirror to get on the bottom hip. Kind of look and see if your chains are even. You can even take a tape measure and measure from like the same point, like from there to where the edge of this is, and there to there. You know they're even, so you know that you're looking about the same spot. So a couple little things there, and then just screw the bolts in, the 4 bolts. There's the short ones were for the exhaust, the long ones were for the intake, and you can just run those in and just finger tight's fine for now. You don't want to torque those down because you don't want the cams to move right now until you get everything in line. And now remember, I told you before, once again, I don't have the crank at top dead center because I didn't want any of the pistons all the way up, so I backed it off. I will have to fix that here in just a moment when I get ready to put all this back together. What I wanted to take a moment and point out to you is right there is the opening for the water pump. You see that little hole there in the middle? That serves a purpose, and you can see if you look at the water pump on these, and actually there's I don't remember the guy's name now. I apologize if it's you. I'll give credit to you. I just don't remember your name. I was watching some YouTube videos last night, and he pointed this stuff out, and I thought it was a good idea to point it out as well. But water pumps are made the way they are for a reason. And if you'll see, there's 2 O-rings. One being the outside separating the oil area, the inside separates the coolant area. Well, there's an area in between, and there's a hole there, and there's a hole there. There's 2 holes on this one. Those are weep holes. So if it starts leaking past the coolant side, it doesn't go straight into the oil. It hits there, runs out the bottom. Flashlight. Runs out the bottom through that hole. Exactly where that hole leaks out to, I'm not positive. I think it's right back here on the back of the block somewhere, on the back of the time cover of the block or something. But its purpose is not to mix the oil and the coolant, or even if it leaks past the shaft in there. If you've got play on these, you know, if you can feel the play in the shaft, it should leak past that and come out the weep hole first, which is if you look at, you know, you can't see it in here, but there's all the way through there, you can see the shaft in there. If it gets really bad and it's leaking all the way out into the oil, you know, it's gone too long. So, but that's the purpose of the way this is made and why those holes there and stuff like that. So I'm going to install that, and then we're going to go ahead and install the primary chain. This is going to be the next step. And what we're looking for here, man, I could have had a little more room before I started that, huh? Like I said, this is a new chain, so I had the marks. The older chain, I did not see marks on, but and I'll tell you the directions I was using had some different color. It said different colored links than what's on here, and every picture I've seen shows a totally different tensioner than what came off and what this one is, even for this model. So I'm not really sure, but this is what we're working with. You got another copper link down here, and it's a single link. The one color link that's by itself. If you have different color links, that's fine. Two links should be the same color, and one link should be the color by itself. The one by itself, the copper on this case, is for the crank. The other two are going to be closer together, and ours is like a, I don't know, what do you want to call it, a pewter, a blue almost. And there's one there and one there. So, and those are for your cam marks. So what we'll do, let's see if I got a picture for you. maybe. All right, well, there's a mating mark on the bottom one for the crank, and it's just about 180 out of where the keyway is, which is where it should be pointing up to the, you know, the top of the perpendicular to the bank one. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Here's some good info. Let's see if I can do this so I can see it here too. Anyway, you have 3 marks. You're going to have the mark on the cam, the other mark on the other cam, gears, and then the one on the crank, which, like I said, sits off just off 180 degrees. So now here's the thing. When you're doing any kind of timing, what you got to keep in mind is whatever side has the tensioner is what side needs to get the slack. So if I want the slack here, okay, over here, I've got to start down here at the crank, and then I need to run this tight up and over the water pump. I've got to put the water pump in, okay, and then you're going to run this up and over, tight along the water pump, keep it tight on the cam, come over. You know what? And before I can keep it tight on both cams, I need to install the upper guide rail because it needs to run on that. I think on this one I'll have to do that. Yeah, because it's going to take up just a little bit of slack. You see how it runs down at an angle? So then I'll lay that across there. I'll go ahead and install this while it's in there because I don't know if you can just slide that straight off. So I'll put that around the cam, and then I'll install this, and then I'll keep it tight on this side, put this mark matched up, and all the slack should be over here on this side, okay? And that's what you're looking for. That's what you want. So once you get that on, you can put your slack rail on there. You can put your tensioner in, 2 10mm bolts, and we can install our little guide rail there. It looks something like that. So anyway, once we get that on, I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, so I got put the water pump in, 3 bolts holding that. I lubed those up with a little silicone, put the 3 bolts in, holding that in, tighten those up. Then I started with the started with the main timing chain, primary timing chain at the bottom, and lined up. There you can kind of see it, the copper link and a little timing mark there. Then I came up, kind of pulled it tight against the water pump, snuck it around, lined up the little bluish link there. It's kind of hard to see it, and the timing mark there. And then I snuck it over here and put that one, line that camshaft gear up. And then this is the tricky part here. These wanted to turn on me quite a bit actually, and that's, like I said, that's the reason I always leave the I don't leave it at perfectly top dead center because I don't want a chance, you know, if it rolls 3 or 4 teeth, I don't want any valves bending. So I basically took 2 wrenches, put them on the hex heads there, and kind of finagled them there. Right here, kind of holding on to them. It's kind of hard. I can't even show you what I'm doing. But anyway, I kind of held those 2 together and then slid down the internal guide. Got that on there, and that kind of kept it tight for me. Got the slack rail on there, and then just kind of held that in, pulled on it, kind of like so. Just pulled it tight, and so that I could feed the primary chain tensioner down there. Put the screws in. And once you get the screws in there, that just kind of holds it in place. I went back and torqued everything, just to give you an idea of the torque specs. Here, I can show them to you. The way they're laid out on here is basically the first number is, let's see, we'll see that one up there. The first number is Newton meters, the second one's like kilograms per pound or something like that, and the last one's foot pounds. So whatever you're used to, I usually do Newton meters, but you know, if it's an odd one, like one's 8.1 there, I go to the foot pounds or something like that, or I'll go to Newton meters. I'll do something like that. So anyway, the internal guide rail is 8.1 Newton meters, or I think it's 7.2 foot pounds. I did 8 Newton meters. What I did. The internal, let's see, that's the internal guide. The other guide down here, the tension guide, is, let's see, 21.5 Newton meters. They're 12mm heads, or 16 foot-pounds. The chain tensioner, primary tensioner, is 8 Newton meters. It's little 10mm heads. I think that was all this. Oh, and then the slack guide, the one with the, I think it's an 8mm, 9mm, let's see, 8mm Allen, is 15.7 Newton meters or 12 foot-pounds. And then after I got all those on there, I actually pulled the pin for the tensioner to keep everything tight, and then I went back and torqued since these were the ones I missed last time, I did these first, the intake side, and then went back into the exhaust side. The intake side's 103 Newton meters or 76 foot-pounds, and the exhaust side is 123 Newton meters or 91 foot-pounds. And what I do when I'm torquing something like that, I'll just get a wrench, hold it on the cam, and I'll do it that way. Now, if you didn't have the valve covers off to do that, then I would probably hold it down at the crank and do it so that nothing moves. Basically, you need to hold it still so you can get that kind of torque spec on there. Otherwise, you're just going to turn the engine over. So everything's torqued now, and that was the hold up last time. That's where my problem was, is I didn't finish the job. So that's everything on there now. Like I said, I just pulled the pin out, and that thing kind of ratchets out. And basically at this point, there's 2 O-rings you need to remember to replace. One right there and one right there, which is it's the tube that goes through and feeds the IVT solenoids. You need to make sure you replace those. Let's see, what else do I have? You know, anything you're coming across. I mean, you know, replace the little half moon gasket for the upper oil pan / outer timing cover there. You know, I'm replacing all these gaskets here, and I'll go briefly over this stuff again, but the biggest thing I wanted to do with this one was just get down the timing part of it.